So, particularly moms with their teen boys struggle to connect. I give this assignment all the time. I would like you to do something with you for 15 minutes, 3 times a week. Anything you want, but we have to do something and you get to choose. And if they make you do a video game, great. You get to learn about video games. And that investment, which leads into the long term, that investment is going to begin to chip away at some of these one word answers because they know that you care more.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Mom Essentials. Getting a teen boy to open up can feel like negotiating with someone who's holding himself hostage. You ask, "How's your day?" "Fine." "Anything going on?" "Nope." The door closes and you're left in the hallway, certain something's happening in there, and you're locked out of all of it. Today, we're going to be doing something about that. We're talking about how to keep your teen boy actually talking, how to tell the difference between a normal rough patch and something that genuinely needs a therapist for, and how to help him make a real change when he's ready for one. Today is my guest is Jarrod Hoffman, a licensed professional counselor who builds his whole practice on two beliefs. One, that teens are far more resilient than we give them credit for. And two, parents are far more valuable than they sometimes feel in the thick of it. Jarrod also comes with real world credentials. He, after all, was a teen boy himself. And these days, he's a devoted reader and still hopelessly on the fence about whether it's Messi or Ronaldo. But what really shapes his work and his own story is his parents' divorce when he was 10 and he lost his dad at 28. Out of that, he has made it his mission to help people find healing from their wounds and come through their suffering stronger on the other side. So, Jarrod, thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome to Mom Essentials.
Thanks, Angie. I'm really excited to be here. And, you gave teen boys a really kind word there that they would say nope rather than just grunting. And so I'm excited to get in with you.
That is true. I didn't think my grunting skills were up to par. So I figured I would just do the one short answer that many parents feel like they get when they are trying to connect with their children, especially in the teen years. But then they feel frustrated and kind of left in the dark. And do you kind of find that sometimes parents, we try push a little too hard to make that
Mm.
connection when really all these boys need is space?
That's a balance for sure. It's up to the individual kid sometimes whether you might be pushing too hard. Certainly, the one thing I get a lot is everybody just asks me unending questions, and there's
Mhm.
strategies other than questions. I think of two. I think of reflections. Sometimes it's very valuable to just kind of reflect back what you see rather than ask a new question. Oh, you're really excited about that assignment that's coming up. That's probably an exaggeration or just doing something with them rather than kind of asking them questions and talking to them.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like sometimes parents, and I see this too when it comes to things like chores, for example. Like, oh, you just came in the house. I need you to sweep the floor,
Mm,
the dishwasher. I need you to put your clothes away, and then I need you to go outside and take out the trash. And like they're just coming in, and in an adult mind,
mhm,
we're already
mhm,
kind of at max capacity where we're like, okay, this is the to-do list. And then we kind of vomit it on them. And then it just overwhelms them even more where they're like, oh my, that was a lot. And I feel like sometimes we can do that with questions when we're trying to
mhm,
connect. We're like, how was school? Tell me all about it. Who did you sit by? Like, what's going on this weekend? Do you have any plans? And they're kind of like, whoa, I just walked in the door and you're you're slamming me with all this stuff. So, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you, though, because we have talked many times offline as well that I don't think we've had a specific episode geared specifically towards teen boys. And I think it is such an important thing. I know as being a parent to preteen, a boy and a girl, I feel like there's a lot of information out there about girls because
mm,
we have so many issues with, or I shouldn't say that because boys have the same amount of issues, but I think the girls get a little bit more public favor of like, we
mm,
need to make sure that our girls are strong and independent and that they love their body and that they're being, safe in different situations. And I kind of feel like boys get a little bit of the short end of the stick almost because
mhm.
it might be around some of those like masculine messages that we, grew up with and that are getting kind of put back to our boys. But can you share a little bit more like why you're so passionate about helping
Mm.
teen boys?
Yeah, it's definitely connected to my story as a former adolescent boy. I feel like that's as important as the letters after my name. And so when I was 10, my parents got divorced. And when I was 11, I saw porn for the first time. It wasn't until 25 years old that I found healing through counseling. And so I'm just passionate about making that gap smaller and meeting people in the time where it's happening versus 10 years later. So if I'm talking to a 30-year-old that we're doing work together, we're talking about when they were 15. The first time that this happened, it was when they were 12. And so I get the pleasure of meeting a child when they're 12, right? Yeah. So the reason that I work with children and teen boys for sure is because of my own story. When I was 10, my parents got divorced. When I was 11, I saw porn for the first time. And it wasn't until 25 years old that I found healing through counseling. And I'm passionate about making that gap smaller, specifically because most of the work that we're doing in the therapy room is about the things that have happened during those years. So if I'm seeing a 30-year-old, we're talking about what happened when they were 12 years old. And I
Yeah.
find that the healing happens much faster when they're 12. I have a problem in my practice, and the problem is that they get better in 8 sessions versus uh, me, who's still in therapy for years later because I'm still working through these same things.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point, and that's what I talk to parents about all the time, or when people ask me about the work that I do in my parent coaching business, as I say, I work specifically with the parents because we are so hardwired that it typically takes longer for us to change some of
Mm,
our behaviors and to rewire that stuff. And the goal is not only to help the parents fill their toolboxes with better strategies, but our kids are watching us all of the time. So, what a beautiful thing it would be if we were able to hand them down already upgraded tools so that they can continue to build their toolboxes as they go through life. Versus, again, I love therapy. I'm a huge advocate of it, and I'm like, it would be great if my kids did not find themselves in a therapy office at 35 like I did.
mhm,
So,
mhm,
I think it's beautiful work that you're doing. I think it's again so needed. And I'm, yeah, just excited to talk about the specifics of the boy stuff. And if you don't mind, I guess something else we've never talked about, I don't think on this podcast, is pornography.
mm,
And
mhm,
in today's world, one, we have the internet that our kids have pretty much at their fingertips. Even though, like, my kids, for example, don't have phones, I know they can still find it when they're, on their computer playing video games
mm,
or they see it at a friend's house,
mhm,
things like that. What can we do as parents of teen boys to help maybe even persuade them or to educate them on the dangers of pornography?
mhm. Yes, yes. It's a pervasive problem when we define pornography widely, which
Yeah.
is very valuable. We have this idea of it's this. When we define pornography really for what it is on a wider spectrum, we realize that it's just everywhere. So when I think about parents and what they need to know about porn, I think about three things. They need to know that they can't block it, and
Mhm,
then educate for it, actually prepare them, and then finally connect through it.
mhm,
So, an example of not being able to block it is exactly what you said. They can access it at a friend's house. They can see it on their school computer. That's where a lot of kids see it for the first time, is on their school device. Good luck trying to send your kid to a school that doesn't have some sort of a device, right? So it's going to happen. Then the second thing is that you educate. When there's some research around drug and alcohol, particularly use among older teens, and the use decreases if the parent has a conversation about it. That's
mm,
it. It could have been awkward. They didn't like scale for how awkward it was. And then third, it's the connection, right? Because like we talked about, you don't want your kid in counseling at 30 if they could be in counseling now. Well, somebody's kid is going to be in counseling for the first time at 30.
yeah.
Knowing that they're connected to their parent even then, so valuable.
Mm, mm. I think you bring up a really good point, Jared, because I always remind my kids, especially when like there's tension or something, I'm like, I ask for grace and I say, I know that you're just figuring stuff out because this
Hmm.
is the first time you've been this age and going through this stuff. And this is the first time I'm figuring this out too as a parent. And I think a lot of parents who are listening to this are thinking, Jarrod, I don't even know how to bring up the subject. Like, do I trap them in the car and say, have you ever looked
Hmm.
at porn? Like how do we start approaching that awkward situation that might make us really uncomfortable, but is one of those like necessities as a parent
Hmm.
because it's really our job to protect our kids, but also teach them these different life things.
Mm. It's not awkward, you're not doing it right. Just, like go. So if you're uncomfortable, good. You think about how uncomfortable it is to be an 11-year-old boy accessing porn and unwanted sexual behavior.
Yeah.
The connection that you're going to experience with your parent after they bring it up and care for you in that way is going to supersede any of the awkwardness.
Yeah.
We think about it as a one-time conversation. And if you're thinking it's a one-time awkward conversation, that's an issue. It really needs to be an ongoing and let's say, a developmental lifetime. So
Yeah.
an example is, when I think about my child recently, I hate that it always goes to them as examples, but there you go. They were She was playing in the room, and we were excited, even though she was supposed to be going to bed, because we were able to get some time playing a game with friends. And I realized that she's saying something in the room. And we're debating, is she saying I love mountains or I love mustaches, which neither makes sense, because what she actually was saying was I love medicine. She had gotten a hold of the Advil bottle. I
Oh,
mean, why was the cap not there? How could she access it? And so she's just drinking the Advil, Tylenol, and we had to, call poison control and the whole thing. And the memorable thing from this moment is those bottles actually have warning labels. I never
yeah.
paid attention to it before then. And so if we widen the spectrum on what pornography is, we realize that we need to have conversations as early as, hey, medicine can be very dangerous.
Mm.
And obviously, medicine is very helpful. So, actually, later in the story, maybe 6 months later, we're trying to give her medicine. There's only a little bit left in the bottle. So, I hand it to her. I'm like, hey, drink the medicine. She goes, no, I can't. It's dangerous. And it's like, oh my gosh. The kind of developmentally appropriate language I used, I actually have to add it and tweak it because there's something else you need to know that, hey, this medicine can make you feel better if I'm helping you. So if you
Yeah.
view technology in this way, that it's a tool, that it comes with positives and negatives, and your job is to help them grow into it and learn what to do with it, you think about that kind of sex talk in a different way. At
Yeah.
3 years old, maybe even earlier, you're addressing, hey, these private parts that you have, no one else gets to touch those except for mom and dad when we're cleaning it. That's it. And then
Yeah.
that grows into, hey, this device that I have, there's some really good things about it and there's some really bad things. And I'm going to
Yeah.
help you learn about those things. Maybe that'll make the kind of one-time quote sex conversation a little bit more palatable because we've been preparing for this
Yeah.
versus, hey, they're 14, I should probably tell them something about porn. It's like they know more than you, right?
Yeah.
Not too late by any means, but they do probably know more than you about what's out there.
Yeah. Well, I think you bring up a great reminder that these conversations have to be had continuously, maybe not the same
Mhm,
one in different terms and different times and different seasons of their life, but it's so important to keep that repetitive communication. And of course, I
mhm,
talk about that all the time when it comes to like family meetings and having a 15-minute a week meeting, with your kids and if you have a spouse, so that you can all be on the same page and starting, with those conversation questions, just get people talking, really kind of building up that communication. But it's just like anything in our homes, right? Like we need to remind our kids the different responsibilities that they have. We wish we could just tell them one time and they were to remember. The truth is that they're not going to. So even when it comes to uncomfortable conversations
mhm,
too, it's really
mhm,
important to check in with them. But I feel like maybe some parents are thinking, okay, this sounds great. Like I've tried to have that talk before, Jarrod. I've
mhm,
tried to kind of talk about sex or appropriateness or the use of technology. And again, I get the one word answer, or I get the
mhm,
grunt, or I get
mm,
the want to talk about this. Is that our children just being defiant? Is it them being uncomfortable? And how should we handle that situation?
So you're talking about specifically in the conversation of I'm trying to have this conversation and there's not much give and
Yeah.
take.
Yeah.
Yes. And I would say there might be an overlap a little bit between sort of the developmental stage of a 14-year-old and their relationship with their parents, and maybe the awkwardness of what actual conversation is happening, right? If you were talking about maybe something that they're more interested in, right, a hobby, the newest video game, that kind of thing, they might be able to talk your ear off of it. One thing to really remember is that a lack of verbal communication isn't the whole story. There's nonverbal communication. There's the fact that they're actually present for it and listening. So there's one requirement that I have in my room is not that they have to answer me with words. A
Mm.
nod will do. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes. They could give you, I tell parents, tell them thumbs up or thumbs down. What do you think? I communicate with a lot of my teen boys in this range, and they'll go, like this. And so, remember that the connection is more than just the words that are happening. And particularly on this topic, the long-term payoff of you actually having it, despite how uncomfortable it is, and despite the maybe grunts or the looking away, or you're in the car or whatever it is going to pay off far more than if you don't do it or expect this verbal response. And if I fast forward to kind of like what you can do for down the road, they're not talking. You can repeat this line if you have the resources to do so. Tell them, hey, I know you probably don't want to talk about this, particularly with your mom. I wouldn't, but just know this may or may not be an issue for you right now, if it ever is. And if
Mm.
it's ever something that goes beyond just like in curiosity and you can't stop, you let me know. I won't ask a single follow-up question and we'll get you some help.
Mm. Yeah. I love those tips, and so many things are running through my head right now. I love the idea of that our kids don't always have to be talking to us verbally, or giving us as much as we're giving to them. Because again, I think sometimes we kind of like word vomit on our kids, because we get so
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable too, and we don't like the silence. I think the more that we say, the quicker it's going to get done. But I think it's a great reminder that even if our kids don't seem like they're as engaged as we want them to, like they're still listening to us. They're still
Mm-hmm.
picking up on stuff, and it's still creating those memories for them that's creating a stronger connection. We had an issue, and the other kind of part of that too is I love how you said at the end there, like, come to me. I won't even ask any questions. I just, I'm here. You're letting them know that you're the safe space. We had a situation come up with one of our kids, and something inappropriate happened with another child. And they
Mm,
told us this. Well, they told me this, and it was really, really hard for them to tell me this. And I definitely had a couple different reactions that I wanted to give, and I kept having to remind myself of like the way that I respond to this for them is how they're going to remember. So the next
mm,
time they have an issue, that's gonna be in the first thought of their brain is, "Oh, if I tell mom this, this is
mhm,
how she's gonna react." And if I would've, gotten upset or for some reason said that they were, that it wasn't important or that they were lying or whatever it was, I know that would stick with them because that's what happened when I was a kid. If I've given this example so many times, and of course I was a teen girl, not a teen boy. But like even getting lost driving, I remember, I was on the way to the mall with my girlfriends. We were definitely not paying attention because we were just excited that we got to go to the mall. Totally missed the turn. Ended up in downtown. I'm from the Twin Cities, and my first thought was my dad knows everything. He's working down here all the time. He's a foreman for a construction company, so he was moving all around the cities all the time. And I called him, and that man was so angry at me and started
mm,
yelling and telling me to lock my doors. What did you do? How, you have to get out of there. When really I was just like, "Hey, tell me, do I turn on Selby or do I turn on a different street? Like, how do I get out?"
mhm,
And that was always what stuck in my head of like, even when I'm lost, I don't want to call my dad because he's going to be angry. Now, looking back at that, I know that it was because that is how he projects when he's
mm.
when he's upset or he's nervous or he's scared that something's going to happen to me.
Mm,
But again, I think the way that we respond to stuff is so important as well. And keeping that in mind to help us kind of try stay in the calmest situation as possible. So let's talk a little bit more. Let's say that it's not, about drugs or alcohol or porn, but just the day to day stuff, Jarrod. How do we keep our teen boys talking and trying to build up that connection with them?
mhm. Yes. Not giving up is a big one. They're in the perfect storm of, like I said, valuing peer relationships over parent relationships. I feel like when they're in their 20s, 30s, they have a family, that's when you're gonna get the thank you, potentially, that's when you're gonna get the encouragement. Uh, don't forget to do your own work, which is what you're talking about, is I'm a parent and I'm moving toward anger. What do I do about this? So, how do you do this in the day to day? I think of a couple things that we've kind of already hinted at. Teens want to know that you care about them, and asking questions doesn't always do that. So these reflections can be really helpful. I'll give you practical examples about this. I also think about the interests. Their interests have changed. Maybe you got to do something really fun when they were 8. They don't like it anymore. Well, I connect with people who spend time doing the things that I like. And so doing the things that they like, and that probably changed. So reflecting, doing the things that they like. Yeah, and knowing that it's long term. You don't have to, it's not a race. The reflection practical piece I would give is a lot of our conversation is I ask you a question, you respond. If it's a really nice conversation, you ask me a question, I respond. We're waiting patiently. We don't have time for that as a parent, so I get it, right? We got to get it done. We got to get the dishes done so you can get to your homework and all of these things. Especially about something that they're interested in or deciding to make a change about. Reflecting something is also an option. So maybe I get angry because yet again, they walked in, they threw their backpack down, and they, didn't do the responsibility they have. And normally it's a one word answer. Taking that moment to pause, and rather than saying, like, did you forget to do the dishes? Be curious about what they might be feeling in that moment. So reflect a feeling, reflect what you see. Hey, I'm wondering if you might be frustrated at something because I noticed that you put the backpack in the corner and walked right up to your room. That's not a question. It's actually a statement of what you think might be going on. And the beautiful thing about teens is that they might correct you. They might say, yes, exactly. And great. You use some empathy in that moment. They also might correct you. Oh, no, I wasn't frustrated. I was pissed, or I
Mm,
wasn't frustrated. No, I'm sad that something, and this is, you're not going to get this 10 out of 10 times, but maybe 1 out of 10 versus 0 out of 10 because they know that you're trying to empathize with them. So using that kind of formula, right? I see this. You might be feeling this. Is that right? Or would you say something else? Can be a
mm,
really powerful reflection. The second piece is interests, right? So, particularly moms with their teen boys struggle to connect. You mentioned the car. I actually think the car is a great time because you're not eye to eye, which is generally not what, kind of the stereotypical male does, is like look eye to eye, conversation, coffee. No, they're like doing something side to side. They're fishing, they're playing a sport. They are playing video games, right? Treat it like a homework assignment of learning about Super Smash Bros. Or whatever the video game might be, and legitimately ask, like, I would like to do something with you. I give this assignment all the time. I would like you to do something with you for 15 minutes, 3 times a week.
yeah.
Anything you want, but we have to do something and you get to choose. And if they make you do a video game, great. You get to learn about video games. And that investment, which leads into the long term, that investment is going to begin to chip away at some of these one word answers because they know that you care more
Yeah.
than just does do the dishes get done today. And so an example even that I know is that sometimes you could already be spending time with them, but you haven't made it anything necessarily special, right? It's just like we do this in a normal course of the day. So I've had parents have success by simply saying, the next 15 minutes are yours, I'm yours, whatever you want, and they do the exact same thing they were doing 2 weeks
Mhm.
ago, but they just name it. And
Mm.
so that play, that mutual interest can really go a long way. I think about it in my example with my daughter is like I was disciplining about like potty training. And then I realized like when's the last time we went out and we did the swings together? And so we
Yeah.
just paused. We're going to pause that. We're going to spend some time together and then we'll get back on the horse. And then the
Yeah.
last thing is just knowing that you're in the game for a marathon. It's not like they need to move from grunting to one word answers in 2 weeks. Like, it's probably 2 years,
Yeah.
and just set that expectation and chip away at it.
Yeah. I think those are great tips and little tidbits. And, part of my calm approach, the A is for awareness and accountability and just really becoming curious about things versus I think we just assume so much as parents. Cause again,
Mhm,
we have
mhm,
so much going on. We think that their problems are so small, but we need to remember that we also were a teen at one point and we thought our small problems were the biggest thing in the world because that
oh,
was
yeah.
our world, right? Like
Mhm,
that's what consumed our lives. We weren't worried about mortgages or bills or businesses or taxes. We were worried about why did that person in the hallway give me that weird look when we were supposed to hang
mhm,
out this weekend type of thing. So I think those are great tidbits. But Jared, I want to make sure that too. I mean, you have like an inside look. So there are probably parents on here like, I wish I could get better insight on my child, especially my
mhm,
teen boy. Like, are there any things that you're hearing or seeing that are typical trends for teen boys that maybe parents are like, I had no idea that's how they felt or that
mhm.
was a problem in their life?
Yes, absolutely. I would go back to a statement that I can help to. 3 we always talk about do this, do this, do this. Here's some 3 things not to do, particularly when your kid has entered this age, and I used kid because they've entered an age at some point where if we continue to call them something, not what we aspire them to be, but what they have been, they're
Mm,
going to live into whichever direction. So, one thing not to do at some point, you got to not call them a kid.
mm,
I call them specifically teens or students. I exaggerate sometimes. I say, sir, hey, sir, how are you? Right? I know a school that calls them scholars. They call them scholars on purpose. Are all their works scholarly? Absolutely not. But if you call them children or kiddos or something that they used to be, they're going to stay that way. And so that's a surefire way to get in trouble there. Another thing not to do is to ask them a question and then one of the reasons that we'll ask all these questions is because they're not answering. Well, they know that they'll just my parent's going to move on to the next question. I'll just give them a good. I would wait. I would say, could you tell me a little bit more?
mm,
I say one of the lines that I say all the time is, I can wait. I can give you a little bit of time to think about this. I genuinely want to know a real answer here.
mm,
And that brings me to my last one, real world. You just hit on this. This is so important. Is it has been a while since we were teens. We have forgotten. A lot is the same, a lot is different, but we have forgotten the emotional turmoil of a 4-week relationship that we thought was going to be this is it. It was going to be awesome and they won't look at me anymore, right? We forgot about this. And parents can get in the trap of taking this moment and making a lot of assumptions about the future, right? This is going to ruin your future. You might not get into the college. They're not thinking about that. They're thinking about the pain of the present. And we mitigate, right? We actually push away, push down their pain when we say something like, when you get to the real world.
mm.
When you get to the real world where you have bills and mortgages and stuff, and then, well, we can go on that cycle forever. I've
Yeah.
been on that where my child, I don't know, my child is like not walking. They're like, well, just wait. And when they're walking, what is it not hard when they're not walking? You can go down all the way. You could go to like, just wait until you have aging parents. That's when it gets hard. They are in the real world. They don't have as much responsibility, but the things that happen now are absolutely going to impact the rest of their life. And calling it something fake is not a great way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great reminders. So so good, so good. So are some things that again are issues maybe that teens are
Yeah.
bringing to you that parents are like, "Oh my gosh, I
Mm.
didn't think about that," but you're seeing it very commonly through your practice.
What I think you're asking is like, what do parents not realize
Yeah.
is going on in teen boys' heads? That's an excellent question because once again, this is my world. I kind of hear it all the time and I forget that people don't know it. Pornography is a great example. The porn that exists now and specifically in the last 18 months is complete, like our brains don't have the capacity to understand it, right? Generative AI images and videos. So you used to go
Mhm.
to maybe a porn magazine and it's like you saw what was available to you.
Yeah.
Now you can type text and receive video of anything you want. So truly, that can be an actual person that exists. If you have enough photos, you can do some more research on your own. Um, but it also can be like, hey, I want this to happen in this way and this character and this blah, blah, blah. And it will do it for you. I mean, and it's going to be, in 18 months, it'll be even crazier, better. And so, like, that's something that when we think about anxious generation, right, with Jonathan Haidt, and he talks about just like equipping and rather than blocking, because like we
Yeah.
have to equip about these things. Hey, there are things out there. Anyway, I could go on that train for a while.
Yeah.
Looks maxing, if you're familiar with that, that's a
Mm-mm.
big one. So girls are generally going to struggle with like looking thin. The body proportions are going to be different. Well, for boys, they feel that same level of pressure, but they call it the Adonis complex, which
Mm.
is I need to look big. I need to look strong and muscular. Well, I was 103 pounds in like 10th grade. Right. And so one of the things that weighed on me is all these guys who look like they're in college and they weigh 190 pounds of pure muscle. And so
Yeah.
you're comparing yourself in an opposite way. And a lot of women don't quite understand that because they're like, wait, you want to look bigger? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And so that has been accelerated through social media to a thing called looks maxing, which is like, and I don't even know all the specifics, but like, how can I make myself look even more masculine? They have chewing gum to like make the chiseled jaw appearance because those muscles can grow like way more than it would if you're not chewing gum, right? Like chewing gum that's specifically made for it because there we don't want to talk about it, but there is this expectation on what a man looks like,
Yeah.
and then add another layer but you can't be overly aggressive, right? Because that's like toxic masculinity. So they're stuck in this same issue that girls are, which is you have to look extremely sexual, but you don't have to be like overly sexual because then you're a slut or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are two big things that come to mind.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I wanted you to come on and have this conversation. Because again, I think we talk a lot, and I know I've done it too, which is the guests who have come into my life as far as like girl issues. And obviously, I can relate a lot with like the body images and, wanting to look a certain way because that's how the other, girls look type of thing. But again, the boys are dealing with this as well, especially in like the chewing gum thing, I mean, that just makes my jaw hurt. But, the whole thought of, like, you need to be buff and you need to be fit and you need to be a protector, but you can't be overly aggressive and you can't be overly
Hmm.
masculine because then you're
Hmm.
toxic. And, there
Yes.
is a lot. And obviously, again, I think we're so stuck in our own world as parents that we forget that these are issues that our kids are going through, especially as teens, because we just, again, think, oh, it's not a big deal. Like they should be
Hmm.
having the time of their lives. I wish
Hmm.
I was. I mean,
I
I tell all the time. I'm like, "I'll go back to school for a day if you wanna stay home, like, that's fine."
I
Um,
don't think we really wish that. Like we want the limited responsibility that comes with it, but we don't
yes.
want the intensity of what a teen experiences.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Oh my gosh, Jared, I could just talk to you forever about this because I find it so fascinating. And I just love bringing the awareness to parents again on this specific topic of teen boys. But I want to make sure that we get to this question because there might be some parents who are thinking, okay, yeah, I'm getting the grunts, I'm getting the one answer.
Mhm.
I'm going to try do more conversations. I'm going to try build up that relationship, show more interest. But when does it come to a point if we know that it's not just a phase, like there
Mhm.
really is additional support that's needed for my child or my teen boy?
Yes. So practical takeaway is something that I created that's on my website, jarrodhoffman.com. You can click on quiz. It's the top right of the website. And I've thought a lot about this, so much so that I feel like I've been on repeat. I'm like, I'm going to put together something that just answers it for you, kind of like that perspective. And so you think about the the experience of puberty, right? There's all of these changes that are going on emotionally, psychologically, physically, and with that just comes by nature ups and downs. But what you're asking is like, when is the down so down, or the ups where the ups and the downs are so far apart or so intense that it's not just a puberty thing, it's actually something else. And so the quiz is really helpful because it covers a lot of those things. So, there's a couple that come to mind. It's like there are some of those things that you might see that are actually signs of anxiety or depression.
Mhm,
Are they getting physical aches and pains?
mm,
Yeah, they're going to probably experience some like growing pains, but is it like their stomach hurts every time they go to school? That
yeah.
might be something that's not really actually stomach related. You think about sleep, right? Are they getting good sleep, which is a really tough one because parents think that they're in their room and they're asleep, and they might not. They might have put their device downstairs, but they might have another device that you don't know about, right? That's why you're asking this question, is because it's a little bit tough to tell. So I would refer people to the quiz for sure.
Yeah.
If it's impacting their day to day, if they're struggling to maintain relationships, if they're struggling in their relationship with you, right? I ask a lot of parents to ask their teen, how is our relationship? A scale of 1 to 10. And if
Mm.
it's not a great number, therapy can really help with that, specifically if you're bought in too. Those are some things that come to mind. I don't know what comes to mind when you hear me say those things.
Yeah, I love that last point. First of all, listeners, if you are wondering if your teen boy is in need of some additional support like therapy, the quiz that Jared is referring to is going to be in the show notes. So you're going to want to go there and check it out. I highly, highly encourage that. But I love the last point that you made, that you need to be bought into.
Mm,
We so often think that everyone else is the problem, right? And it doesn't even have to be about our kids. It could be about a coworker or a family member. And we're like, they're the problem. I'm not the problem. I'm perfect. Even if I have a little bit to work on, like they are the ones who need to do the things.
mhm,
But when it comes to, raising kids and building that relationship, I am, yes, such a huge fan of the parents doing the work too, because
mm,
we have a lot of us stuff to unpack from our childhood and our upbringing and the
mhm,
messages that we received. And, we didn't have technology like the kids have technology now. There wasn't AI like there is now. But like we have our own stuff that we can work on. And just to even show your child that you are invested in the growth is going to make a huge difference too. So I'm so glad that you made that point of like, doing therapy even as a family unit can be really
mhm,
helpful. It's not just, hey, here's my child, figure them out and fix them and send them back to me. It's that we
mhm,
have to do the hard work as parents too. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not
mm.
saying you're a bad parent if you get support and help, or you can't fix all of your child's problem, which we could go off on a whole nother tangent, but I know we have to wrap up here about, overly compensating for challenges
Mm,
that our kids go through to help with that resilience piece. But no, thank you so much, Jared. Is there any last little tidbit that you'd like to leave my mamas with who are raising teen boys right now?
mm. I don't think people can be over encouraged. And so just know that your role is important. You're one of two of the most important human beings out of like 8 billion. And so, the connection that you have with your teen is paramount. Like if you're going to put your effort into something, put it into that.
Mm, I think that's a great reminder because even when we get the grunts or the one word answers, we really are one of the most important people, even if we feel like we don't get treated like that all the time. So thank you so much, Jarrod, for your time today. I truly appreciate it. Listeners, again, go to the show notes. Make sure that you check out the quiz, check out what Jarrod's doing, follow him on social, and of course, reach out to him if you're looking for more of that support and help. Jarrod, thank you so much. And listeners, of course, stick around for the Essential Minute coming up next, and we will see you next time on Mom Essentials. Hey, thanks for sticking around for this Essential Minute. If there was one thread running through today's conversation with Jarrod, it was staying calm and definitely adaptable, meeting each kid where they are, rolling with the ups and downs, which are a lot, and keeping your cool when a hard conversation might not go the way you planned. So the oil I want to add into your toolbox this week is doTERRA's Adaptive Blend, and that is for calming. Now, Adaptive has a fresh, soothing aroma of wild orange, lavender, spearmint, and a few other ones that make it a go-to when you want to feel a little more steady and unhurried. Now, here are a few ways you can use it. One, put a few drops in your diffuser at home so the whole house has a calmer feel. Another thing is you can rub a few drops in between your palms, cup your hands, and take a couple deep breaths in when you walk into some of those uncomfortable conversations we talked about, or keep it by your nightstand or in your bag and put it on when you need just a quiet reset. Think of it as kind of like a little anchor for you so you can show up calm and present even on those days your teams gives you nothing but a grunt. Now, if you're interested in adding this to your parenting toolbox, head to the show note or caption and grab it up. Happy oiling. Thanks for listening to this episode of Mom Essentials. If you're looking for simple ways to bring more communication, connection, and calm into your home, head to theparenttoolbox.info and check out the Calm Family Planner. And as a special thanks for being a listener, you can take $5 off with the code ESSENTIALS. That's code ESSENTIALS. Want more tips in between episodes? Follow us on Instagram at theparenttoolbox. See you next time.